It's
Let's
now
ride.
time for the words that are recited before each and every game here at Dodger Stadium. Take it away, Finn.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
What's going on, Dodgers fans? Thank you for listening to a breaking news edition of the Incline Dodgers podcast. We are recording at the 5 o'clock Pacific non-tender deadline for Major League Baseball. So we got some news to break down. We're still waiting on the official announcement. We'll get into what we're obviously talking about in a second. Kevin Klein here, and I want to thank you all for listening to the podcast. We are presented by FanSided. So let's get into it. Numerous reports out there that the Dodgers are going to non-tender their 2019 MVP outfielder Cody Bellinger, who's been with the team since 2017. Maybe a bit of a shocker to a lot of Dodgers fans out there because he's meant so much to the city. Obviously was a 2020 World Series champion, the infamous 2020 Game 7 home run in the NLCS off Chris Martin to put the Dodgers ahead. Maybe his most iconic moment in Dodger blue. But if you've been listening to this podcast pretty religiously, you would have known that I've braced you guys for this moment for quite some time. Jake Reiner couldn't make it today. He's in mourning over this Cody Bellinger news. But David Rosenthal is here to help me break it down with the latest Dodgers news. And we're going to lead off with Cody Bellinger being non-tendered by the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely called it. I'm still surprised that they didn't just eat the 18 million and kind of just see what happens with him. There's still a solid chance they can bring him back at a cheaper deal. Granted, he's going to have a market. I know Toronto's going to be interested. The Cubs are probably going to be interested, and teams are going to be willing to take a gamble on him. I mean, this dude won the MVP less than 3 years ago, so I think he's going to have a strong market. I'm not confident Dodgers will be able to bring him back for less than what they could have just got him for, which is 1 year, $18 million. But it's still, kind of a benchmark as a Dodger fan. It's kind of like this was almost the last of the 2017 team, all of those young guys. I mean, Seager is gone, Kike Hernandez is gone, Justin Turner might be gone, and now Cody Bellinger is also
Jock
gone.
Peterson.
So Jock Peterson as well. Yep. So it's definitely like a changing of the guard for sure, as a Dodgers fan and as a Dodgers organization. And Stan Kasten kind of hinted at that in his press conference, saying we need to open up space for all the new wave to get here. And that's clearly what this was about. I mean, obviously there's a factor of him not performing well whatsoever recently, but it's still kind of a shock, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about off the air, and you'll dive into what the luxury tax and how they're going to reset means, but this comes down to money, and the Dodgers are not messing around this offseason. They already declined Justin Turner's $16 million club option. In total, they're looking like they're going to have $100 million off the books with Tyler Anderson. We'll talk about him going to the Angels. Obviously, Trey Turner's still a free agent. That's another additional $20 million. The awful contracts of David Price, Kimbrel wiped off the books. But I mean, a big thing here with why the Dodgers don't want to go over the luxury tax once again is they're not getting as much compensation as they can when they're offering these players qualifying offers. One of the penalties when you go over this luxury tax, which looks like it's going to be $233 million next season, is the Trey Turners and the Tyler Andersons, a team that isn't spending a lot of money, they get a second round compensation pick. A team like the Dodgers, they get a fourth round compensation pick. And on the flip side, if the Dodgers are going to sign a player that has a qualifying offer tagged to him, the Dodgers get penalized with a second round pick, a fifth round pick, and they lose $1 million off their international bonus or international signing pool money, which is where they're getting key prospects like Andy Pages, Miguel Vargas, Jose Ramos. So yeah, I mean, those are perfect examples right there. But yeah, back to the Cody Bellinger. One of the reasons I think they just had to move on is you can't justify paying $18 million to a player that's just not performing. Defensively and base running, he's giving it to you. But with the bat, these stats have just been atrocious. I mean, this season alone, out of 130 qualifying players with the minimum at bats, he ranked 115th in BABIP, Over his last 3 seasons, he's a 195 hitter with a 642 OPS. You'll give him a pass in 2021 because he batted 165 with a 542 OPS, 10 home runs over 95 games coming off the shoulder surgery. Redeemed himself with a heroic postseason performance against the Giants and the Braves, coming up with numerous key hits. But where's the excuse really in 2022? I mean, he hit 210, which is basically the Mendoza line, a 265 on base. He was striking out like crazy with 150 Ks. Only Chris Taylor had more strikeouts in a full season with the Dodgers. 654 OPS, 19 home runs. If you take away the name and you just look at the stats, you cannot pay another 18 to 20 million dollars to that. I get where the Dodgers are coming from, and it looked more and more likely that this was happening because they literally waited an hour before the deadline for these non-tender candidates for the news to break. So you have to kind of figure that the Dodgers were either aggressively shopping him or just really contemplating what they were going to do. We've already heard a number of teams are interested in the Cody Bellinger market. I think David already mentioned that Brandon Nimmo is the only other sexy center fielder out there who's a Scott Boras client as well. So we've heard the Blue Jays and the Cubs are 2 teams heavily interested in Cody Bellinger. And I get them not wanting to trade players, knowing that it was inevitable he was going to hit the free agent market. I mean, ultimately, Cody Bellinger, I'm going to remember the good with him, not the bad. 6 seasons, hit 248, 332 on base, 487 slugging. That's a OPS over 800, 152 career home runs. On top of that remarkable Game 7 home run off Chris Martin, he also had that legendary catch in the 2020 NLDS in Game 2 when he robbed Tatis Jr. of that home run when Grouder was on the mound. That probably changed the tone of that series as well. 2018 NLCS MVP, big walk-off hit against the Brewers. So I got nothing bad to say about Cody Bellinger. Maybe there's a chance he comes back. Scott Boras client, though, you have to keep that in mind. So at this point, it's just a wait and see now. Bellinger is a free agent.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to miss Cody Bellinger. I mean, I don't really remember the bad with him. I always just remember how he burst onto the scene in 2017 and had 39 home runs and almost 100 RBIs as a rookie, won the MVP 2 years later, was hugely instrumental in the 2020 World Series title, and he just felt like a Dodger. You know, he will always feel like a Dodger to me. No matter what uniform he puts on, it's gonna look weird. But it's at $18 million, you can't produce at the level he did last year for that price, especially if you're trying to get under the CBT line, which I'm almost positive. Don't officially quote me on this, but this would be the 3rd year over the tax for the Dodgers if they went over it. So how it works is so the first year you have a 20% tax if you go over it. The second year you have a 30% tax if you go over it. And the 3rd year or more, if you go over it, it's a 50% tax. So that's a huge difference. What the Dodgers did in 2020, if I'm remembering correct, is they reset the tax. They were just under the CBT line. That's when they traded Stripling at the deadline and basically didn't do anything else. And it resets. So if you go under 1 year, it resets back to the 20% if you go over it. So I'm guessing the Dodgers are going to try to do that this year. Now, like Kevin said, they have a ton of guys that just came off the books: Price, Kimbrel, both Turners, Bellinger now. So they still have a lot of financial flexibility to spend money. But in my best guess, I think they're going to do everything they can to stay under that 233 line and spend about $232 million on this payroll to reset the tax.
That sounds right to me, and I agree. I think the Dodgers are going to have a different tone these days. I mean, they've been spending money like crazy, and it's not leading to a World Series. So I'm not trying to say like they're going to stop spending money and be like the Marlins or something, but I think they're going to be more tactical with the way they allocate to the books. They've been willing to take on a lot of bad contracts over the last few years. The David Prices, early on the Carl Crawfords, the Homer Baileys, and they did that so that they could acquire great players with cheaper flexibility, prospect capital wise. Don't know if they're going to have that same tone this year. If they are, well, then they're thinking ahead by letting these Justin Turners and Cody Bellingers go early so that they could be aggressive in the offseason. The rumors are already starting to float in. It's hard to really put much stock into what any of these reporters are saying, but couple guys like Ken Rosenthal and Bob Nightingale, I believe, already floated out the idea that the Dodgers are going to be interested in Kevin Kiermaier. Don't lose your pants and be like, what the hell? This is a major downgrade. I'm pretty sure if they were to sign Kevin Kiermaier, this is a bench player. And yeah, he's not a great offensive player, but he is a 248 career hitter with a 715 OPS. He has 3 gold gloves. So technically you aren't going to lose an edge defensively. This guy was a big web gem machine. 32 years old, veteran. He was on that Rays World Series team, and he actually held his own against the Dodgers. He batted around 365. So at least there's some clutch in him. The other big name that Morosi and Heyman and the Boris clique, again, don't put too much stock into this rumor either, but apparently the Dodgers are going to at least start shopping in the Aaron Judge market. We've covered this a couple weeks now. I don't think any of us are super thrilled about Aaron Judge, but he did just get awarded the AL MVP with this 62 home run campaign. Obviously, that would be exciting for most Dodger fans because you're adding another MVP. You lose an MVP, you add an MVP. But we've already gone in great depths that we think the regression is coming, and he probably won't age like fine wine.
Yeah,
but that's where the Dodgers stand in the rumor market short term with the outfield option.
I'm just gonna wait and see on that one. I think that's all smoke. I don't think he's leaving the New York Yankees. I think Hal Steinbrenner has already basically said they're willing to back up the Brinks truck for him. I think the Dodgers will kind of mess around and throw like a high AAV short-term deal at him just to see what happens. But yeah. I don't really think what happens. But the Dodgers have just announced the non-tendering of Cody Bellinger and Luke Williams, and there's a surprise on there. They also just non-tendered Edwin Rios. So I don't think anybody was seeing that. I honestly kind of forgot about him.
I will. But go ahead.
No, take it away.
Okay, so yeah, as you just said, David, I'm more shocked about them non-tendering Luke Williams than I am Edwin Rios. For one, because they just added him maybe like 2 weeks ago. So come on, give the guy a break. But I don't know if it was ever mentioned on this podcast. Sometimes I forget if I said it on the air or just over text, but I had a strong suspicion that the Dodgers were done with Edwin Rios. I mean, obviously I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I always kind of found it shady that they left him off that September call-up when they had 2 open spots. And yeah, they gave one to Miguel Vargas, which makes sense to me, but the other spot kind of went to waste. I think they gave it to a reliever, but there were definitely injuries along the way. They could have IL'd Gavin Lux for sure and called up Rios. So I kind of had a feeling that the Dodgers were moving on from Edwin Rios. And I don't know why, but it was kind of a year ago, similar to the Matt Beatty situation, where we could kind of see the writing on the wall where they were just done with him. And it seemed like they had given Edwin Rios a number of opportunities. I don't know what the reason was to break the camel's back.
Strikeouts.
That's a good point. He does strike out a lot. But prior to the injury in this 2022 season, he was running away with that starting job for a split second. He was not like an everyday third baseman, but they were finding ways to get him in the lineup. He was connecting on some home runs, but obviously I'm sure the Dodgers tried to float his name out on the trade market as well. Just couldn't get anything that they liked to bite. So they let him go.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really see that there was a role for him anyway. I mean, even in the offseason now, it's like you see people throwing out lineups and bench suggestions, and you don't even really see his name on there. You know, he was kind of the forgotten man of 2022. The injury sucked, and, you know, he's got the power, no doubt, but I think the strikeouts is what did him in. I really do. I mean, you're going to give guys like Vargas a chance. You might bring back Justin Turner. You might want to sign some kind of power hitter. And there's just not really a role for him. He's not a plus defender at third base. Freeman's taking over at first. You're going to have Muncy and Vargas probably playing third. And I don't think they really want a guy who's pretty much just a DH who strikes out a lot.
Let's take a moment to talk about TickPick, proud sponsor of the Incline Dodgers podcast. I've just had it with Ticketmaster, their BS fees, their crazy on sales. I'm sure you've heard the news if you're a Taylor Swift fan, what's going on over there. TickPick, on the other hand, no service fees, first of all. So you see the ticket price, you know what you're paying, no hidden shady fees. Second of all, they're offering our listeners a chance to save $10 on your first purchase of $49 or more if you download the TickPick app. Just use the promo code Incline. That's all caps Incline. I've been seeing a bunch of tickets on their app that are just going crazy cheap, way under face value. So if you don't know about TickPick, you got to give them a chance because their service is quick, responsive, great deals, no service fees, like I mentioned. And you just use that promo code Incline, save some money. TickPick. Download the app, go to the website. I'm telling you guys, way better than Ticketmaster, and they're doing a giveaway. So check it out on their Twitter for Taylor Swift fans out there. Yeah, so prior to the non-tendering deadline, the Dodgers 40-man roster did hit 38 players, and that doesn't even include Clayton Kershaw yet. We're still waiting on that signing to be official. With these 3 non-tenders, they're now down to 35, so that will give them some roster flexibility. In terms of who they bring on, not entirely sure. Obviously, Justin Turner's still a free agent, so maybe they try to do a reunion with him. I think that'll come down to Justin Turner having to accept a bench role, though. In terms of other things that went down this last week, Tyler Anderson rejecting the qualifying offer and signing with the Anaheim Angels. This one was a little interesting to me. Not so much that the Dodgers missed out on Tyler Anderson, but I'm surprised that they weren't more aggressive in trying to give Tyler Anderson a more competitive offer. I mean, obviously 1 year, $19.5 million is nothing to sniff at. I think on our last episode, I did say that I had read that the market value on Anderson was 3 years, $36 million. So the 3 years, $39 million that he got from the Angels is pretty close. And I felt like he was going to be one of the first names off the board. But looking at the big scope here, I don't think the Dodgers are losing out on too much, and I'll tell you why. First of all, when he initially signed with the Dodgers a year ago, this was just a flyer. They gave him 1 year, $8 million, and Mark Pryor and the pitching development staff and Tyler Anderson's work ethic and willingness to adapt and take in all the information that the Dodgers were willing to feed him resulted in Tyler Anderson having a breakout all-star campaign. Right now, when you look at the Dodgers rotation, with it being Julio Urias, Clayton Kershaw, presumably, and then Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, then that 5th open spot, which could be a number of free agent options, trade candidates, or they keep it internal. Ryan Pepio, obviously, Michael Grove on the 40-man. You're going to see Bobby Miller get called up, I imagine, sometime this season, and potentially Gavin Stone. But, I mean, the Dodgers are going to need another starter, in my opinion, because it's inevitable that Kershaw could get hurt. Dustin May, you're going to have to keep his innings down because he's coming off Tommy John surgery, and this will be his first full season back. Tony Gonsolin appears to also get staggered with injuries, so they're going to need the depth. But I'm really not worried that I'm not really worried about the Dodgers being unable to find another guy, whether they take another flyer, make a big acquisition. But I feel like from the Dodgers' perspective, maybe one of the reasons they weren't aggressive in paying Anderson what he deserved was they do have some concerns about the rules involving the shift going away next season. Guys he's just relying on contact, but when he's able to locate his pitches, he's able to generate a lot of soft ground balls. But maybe the Dodgers have their analytic machine and they see something that we don't.
I mean, they could have matched that offer easily if they wanted to. I mean, the 3 years, $39 million is actually a better deal than the qualifying offer in terms of the Dodgers' finances. You know, that brings the AAV down. Yes, you're committed for 2 more years, but that salary for a guy who can eat innings, you'll take that all day long. So clearly they were comfortable just moving on with him, because if they wanted to match that, they could have done that in their sleep, and he absolutely would have chosen to stay rather than go across the whatever freeway to Anaheim. So that was honestly a surprise to me. I thought he could have gotten more, or even I thought he could have just taken the qualifying offer and signed a deal next year. But I'm happy for Tyler Anderson, honestly. I mean, he's been a journeyman his whole career. He proved that he belongs in Major League Baseball, completely switched over his entire narrative around his career and became a legit all-star and basically one of the top 2 most consistent pitchers on the best regular season team in baseball. So I think the Angels hit a home run with that signing. I'm not sure if he's going to hold up to what he did this year, but I think it's a great signing for Anaheim. And more so for me, it's indicative that the Dodgers are gonna do what Stan Kasten said, which is gonna inject these young players into the major league roster. I think Bobby Miller is going to get a legitimate chance to win a rotation spot in spring training. I think Gavin Stone is not far behind him. As for Ryan Pepio and Tony Gonsolin's role, I'm not so sure. Those are the two guys I'm not certain about in terms of the long-term future of the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers could very well trade Tony Gonsolin. His value is very high right now. And Pepio, just because of his age and kind of, who he's got behind him, I think he makes him not expendable, but an option to trade for one of these many holes on this current roster right now.
Unless the Dodgers are able to sign a proven innings eater, because they definitely still need to do that. And no, I do not want them to sign Justin Verlander. I absolutely hate that rumor, if it's even a rumor. Guy is nearly 40, and apparently he's expecting Max Scherzer money.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to do that, why not just pay Max Scherzer? I get that there's no qualifying offer associated with Verlander, so it's easier to bring him on. But at that age, and he just won the Cy Young, I don't care. I just don't trust it. There are very few guys that pitch into their 40s that can throw at high elite levels. And we just saw with Max Scherzer and the Mets in his first season, not only was he hampered by injuries and missed nearly half the year, when he did pitch in the postseason, he basically cost it for them. He literally shit the bricks, got shelled badly. The Padres had their number on him, and they lost the series. And another thing that I need to see the Dodgers do and focus on, I don't want a repeat of this, all these guys coming back in September just in time for the postseason, because when I reflect on it, it didn't really work out. Obviously, Tony Gonsolin got 4 outs or whatever in the NLDS against the Padres. He made like 1 or 2 appearances before the postseason after missing 6 weeks. Tommy Kahnle couldn't pitch on back-to-backs. He got lit up. Yency Almonte battled the elbow injury, blew the save, even though he was great in Hall's appearances prior to that. He still blew the save at the end of the day. So what I want to see from the Dodgers, I know you can't really control it, but if you can, find guys that have a history and tendency to stay healthy, because they're going to need these guys to be having momentum down the stretch, because that really did not play into the Dodgers' favor this last September. They've looked ice cold. They played like shit most of the month. And then when they got into October, it carried over. They still played like shit. So none of that again.
I think a lot of postseason success is determined by how healthy you are. I mean, we saw the Astros and the Phillies basically had once they got to the postseason, they were pretty much full strength. I don't even think I can name someone on that either of those teams who was injured. And I think that's just kind of the luck of the Irish almost. I think you just got to get lucky in terms of health. I don't think there's a magic wand you can dot these players with to keep them healthy. I think it's just part of a long season and a long grind. But I would like to see him, this goes directly against everything you just said, but I would like them to sign Jacob deGrom. I think that would be awesome for this rotation. I think even if he gets hurt at some point in the regular season, if Jake was here, he would say they're going to make the playoffs regardless. You don't need Trey Turner. You don't need Jacob deGrom. They're going to make the playoffs regardless. So if you can get him and keep him healthy down the final stretch, that's huge. I think a lot of people are being dramatic about the need for offense. I think the offense is fine. With or without Trey Turner, with or without Cody Bellinger, I think this offense is fine. I trust who they have there right now. I think what's missing and what's been missing the past 2 years is a healthy, dominant starter. I mean, besides Julio Urias, they haven't really had a healthy, dominant starter the past 2 postseasons. Buehler in 2021 kind of wasn't really fully himself, wasn't really fully healthy, was tasked with the impossible, him and Urias having to pitch basically as the only 2 starters. I think they need a Jacob deGrom. I really do. I think that would be my number 1 target. He's going to be tough to pry away from Steve Cohen. But if you can sign that guy for like a 2-year or 3-year, $100-something million contract, I think you kind of have to do it.
Yeah, I've been on board with Jacob deGrom, similar to Kershaw in a sense that he's going to miss a month. Hopefully it's earlier in the season rather than later.
Yeah.
But just like Clayton Kershaw, when he gets into October, Jacob deGrom absolutely brings it as well. He was great against the Padres. He was their only win. He's been to a World Series. Now, granted, that was during his rookie season, but he pitched great up to get them into the World Series. The guy embraces the bright lights. The Mets for many years had literally no offense. This is on paper statistically that he was the worst run supported pitcher in Major League Baseball, and he was still posting ERAs in the sub twos, high ones, whatever. And I still think at the age of 34, 33, whatever, I think he's got 3 to 4 good years left. I don't see why not. He started a little later than most guys, so I don't think there's a lot of mileage on his arm like a Clayton Kershaw or a Justin Verlander. So if the Dodgers can make the financials work, I think there is an opening on the starting staff, and you want to get a veteran, an ace, an elite F and bring it guy like Jacob deGrom. So I agree with you.
It's funny that him and Kershaw are like the same age, but Kershaw's thrown like 1,500 more innings or something like that.
Yeah. I also want to acknowledge that I butchered Kodai Senga last time we recorded.
I'm glad you brought that up. We all butchered that. Now, granted, I said I knew nothing about the Nippon Baseball League, but we were under the impression that he was kind of some kind of outfielder. Turns out he's a pretty good pitcher. So that also might be a fit. So our bad. I'm glad you brought that up. To everyone listening, I will personally pledge to be more familiarized with the Nippon Baseball League in the future.
Yeah, so I mixed him up with Masataka Yoshida because that's the other big name floating around.
Classic mix-up.
So I just don't watch Japanese baseball like you. But yeah, this guy has been linked to the Dodgers. He's been linked to a lot of teams. So it's not like the Dodgers are in the lead by any means. But the Japanese thrower, I mean, I was reading that he can hit 99. He throws like some crazy fork ball or something with crazy deceptive movement. So, I mean, given what I'm seeing on paper, I don't know obviously much. I haven't seen much film. Makes sense to me. I also think I read, I mean, I could be wrong once again, but there's no like fee you have to pay the Japanese team to get him onto your team. I think it's just a flat out contract. None of that. I forget what they call it, but you don't have to pay Japan.
Fee.
Yeah, exactly. So that's an incentive right there. The Dodgers also earlier on this Friday afternoon brought back Jake Reed for his third stint. Don't really know what they see in this guy, but he did close out a game for them. So maybe they're like, oh, he's got that dog in him. He can be our next closer. Highly doubt it, but clearly they like him if they're willing to bring him back for the third consecutive season. We'll see how long he lasts. Maybe it'll be longer than Luke Williams. Although every time Jake Reed makes the 40-man, he seems to last maybe a 2 to 3 week span, and then they let him go again.
Yeah.
The guy is the definition of a journeyman. And then just the other thing I wanted to hit on real quick, and I don't want to exclude you if you had anything else to bring up, but the Dodgers did add Diego Cartaya, Michael Busch, Andy Pajes, and Johnny DeLuca to their 40-man roster. The first three were no-brainers. The last one, I honestly had never heard of DeLuca before, not even in their top 30 prospects. But between high A and double A, guy is a home run masher, posting home runs around the 25 range, high OPS is in the high 800s. I don't really know if any team was going to poach him off the Dodgers. He is 24, I think was what I read. So he definitely is MLB ready in terms of age, but I don't know about skill. And I will add that Jose Ramos wasn't added to the 40-man, so he is eligible for the Rule 5 draft. And I'm no expert in how these things go, but I'm not going to lie. I am shaking in my boots a little bit that he is going to get drafted. And my rationale why is, well, first of all, he's the 8th prospect in the Dodgers pipeline, so that means he's pretty damn good. He is 21. He's only played in high A, I believe, but he mashed regardless. I just have this sneaky suspicion that a team like the Reds, a team like the maybe even the Rangers to an extent, what are some other bad teams? The Pirates, teams that are just bad, that have nothing to play for, are going to use that Rule 5 pick on Ramos. Now that rosters have expanded to one extra player, they'll try to stash him all year long and just hold out.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that. I really hope he doesn't get claimed because I think he's gonna be a very solid player. But like you said, he's only 21 and only played in high A. So if someone does draft him in the Rule 5, the rule is, if you're unfamiliar, you have to keep him on your major league roster and there's no sending him down. So basically it's just a full send if you're gonna do it at that point. But like you said, I mean, a team like the A's or the Reds or someone could just take that flyer, and if it doesn't work out, they just end up cutting him. But a lot of the beat writers were saying that it would be a surprise. I hope they're right because I would like to not lose him and keep him in the system.
Yeah, definitely. I think he really does have the ability to be a special talent, and he's probably 2 years away from maybe even cracking the major league roster. But I think when he does get called up, he will be an impact player. It's interesting that I'm reading other guys that got non-tendered. Jorge Alfaro got let go by the Padres. Kind of surprised there, but I guess at the same time, not so surprised because he can't really catch. But yeah, there weren't a lot of notable names that really stood out to me that got non-tendered over the course of today. But we're in an interesting spot now where the Dodgers have made their subtractions and it's time to now make the additions. I think the first thing they got to do is announce that Kershaw deal because we still don't know technically what he's signing for. Probably can guess in the ballpark between $17 to $20 million.
Yeah.
But that's speculation. So they got to make that official. And then, yes, I agree, David. They got to add one starting pitching, but they also got to add one, if not two outfielders, because right now we're looking at an outfield of Trace Thompson, Mookie Betts, and it was Luke Williams, but they non-tendered him. So you got Chris Taylor.
No, Chris Taylor. Yeah. Luke Williams is never a serious contender for that. Well, you got Outman waiting as well, who I think they're high on.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of non-tender outfielders that they could pick up. The Marlins non-tendered Brian Anderson, Blue Jays Raimel Tapia and Bradley Zimmer. So those are just a couple guys they could just sign and have as a bench bat, stuff like that, depth-wise. But another guy that nobody's really talking about who didn't even play last year is Michael Conforto. Yes, he's a Boris guy, but I think he's going to be much cheaper than Brandon Nimmo, and I think that kind of fits with what the Dodgers need, honestly, a left-handed outfielder.
Yeah, but the problem with that, he's coming off shoulder surgery. Do we really want to go down that
Well, if it doesn't work once, might as well try it again. Only once, shame on you.
Well, the first time was actually Matt Kemp. The second time was Cody Bellinger. Now the third time's like, oh God, here we go. I don't know. I don't think they will. I don't see that as a likely possibility. I'm not an expert on his defensive skills, but I feel like he's average in that realm. And he's also kind of a platoon bat, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, with Nimmo, you get the great defense as well. But I think he'll fetch around 100-something million. So I don't know if they're comfortable doing that if you're trying to get under the CBT line with a bunch of other holes, because we haven't even talked about shortstops. I mean, they're in the mix for some of these shortstops. Obviously, there's Correa, Buzz, Trey Turner could come back. Dansby Swanson, I don't think he's going to leave, but he's in the mix. And Bogarts, I think, stays as well. But they got some money to mess around with. I just don't know exactly where they're going to throw it at.
Yeah. Yep, they've been in contact with all the shortstops, and I think that this is a good place to wrap it up. I mean, we covered everything that there is right now in the Dodgers land. Any final thoughts or shade you want to throw out there real quick, David?
No, I hope they can bring Cody Bellinger back on a cheap deal. I really would like to see him back, get him a chance to prove it, essentially turn a 1-year deal into a contract year, like they would have at 18 million. And give him a shot. I think he's still super talented. I think there's a lot going on in between his ears right now. I think that is contributing to a lot of his struggles. I just don't see how you can be that good and then just have it all go poof. It's a very tough game, but I would like to see them bring him back for, a 1-year, $8 million deal and see what happens. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can cut him, but I don't think I'm going to get my wish because I think a team is gonna give him a multi-year deal and take a shot on him.
Yeah, I think he just became one of the most attractive free agents on the market. David Vassegh, said that you can throw the Rays and the Marlins into the mix as well for going after Cody Bellinger. I don't think he's going to get a big payday, but I do think a team's going to be willing to offer him 2 to 3 years, 10 million plus. And obviously if the Dodgers had non-tendered him, I don't think they're going to have a chance. And then also Vasse thinks Kenley Jansen and the Giants are discussing a 2-year contract. So, oh boy, would that be fun to see Kenley Jansen more often.
Oh, that'd be gross.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We'll be back in a few more days. This is what we live for: off-season Dodgers activity, roster moves. So I'm excited to see what they do. I think they're going to add some exciting names in the upcoming weeks. With Twitter being so weird, make sure to subscribe to the Incline Dodgers podcast wherever you listen: Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. Subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, your favorite rants, all that. Appreciate it. Feedback goes a long way. And yeah, that's all I got for now. Kevin Klein, David Rosenthal, peacing out here, and go Dodgers.